Welcome back to another episode of the Loco Fit Show, where we redefine what healthy means to you. I'm your host, Laurin, and today is a solo episode where we were talking all about New Year's resolutions. And it is the end of the year, y'all. We have just a few days left, and it's this period between Christmas and New Year's where everybody's kind of just relaxing, reflecting, maybe decompressing from the holidays. And a lot of times people are in this position to where they're thinking, should I set resolutions? Should I not? And I feel like we either hear the horror stories about everybody fails resolutions, you shouldn't even set them, why try? Or the super overzealous, like, I can do everything, I can conquer the world, I can fix all of my problems in the first 2 months of 2024. And as always, there is a middle ground, there is a balance we can strike. So I wanted to go over some strategies with you guys to create resolutions or insert any word, right? Goals, intentions, manifestations, even just like creating a word or phrase for the new year. And I wanted to go through a few strategies, but first, let's go through this survey. So I just typed in New Year's resolution. I wasn't even sure what was going to come up. I was actually kind of curious what was going to come up. And there was this article that Forbes Health administered back in October of this year. And it was to 1,000 adults in the US. And I'm so interested in these results, and I think it really speaks to kind of just where people are at right now. The most commonly selected New Year's resolution for 2024 was fitness. And this was interesting because it differs from last year's most common New Year's resolution, which was mental health. And I truly love that people are acknowledging that their physical health is so important, but this also doesn't mean that people are ignoring their mental health. So in this survey, you were actually able to select, it wasn't just one question, there was multiple questions, and you were able to select multiple options. So out of this survey, 55% of people said that mental and physical health are of equal importance. What I think is so interesting about this is that people are recognizing that you can't just focus on mental health and swimming in your feels, self-care, and all this kind of stuff. Like we hear, like mental health has become this like almost platitude that people are using, right? Like people are shouting like, we care about mental health. Companies like, mental health is important. And it's like, what does that actually even mean? And I think that we have been sold this lie that if we focus on mental health, or whatever that means, because it has a different definition to everybody, that everything is immediately going to be better. And nothing could be further from the truth. Focusing on your mental health and improving that, super important. But the way that it has been painted in society and media and social media as of late, in my opinion, is really just this like quick, easy, like, yeah, just self-care and bubble baths and like your mental health will be better. And it's like, of course, I'm oversimplifying here, right? To be a little bit dramatic, but I think we all are feeling this. And I think like of these 1,000 people, which is not even a large subset, people are recognizing like, okay, I do need to also put a big emphasis on my physical health. Because yeah, I think that mental health has been reduced to this concept almost that takes away the validity and the importance of it, and it just really kind of like lacks substance in my opinion. So we need to focus on both, but I'm really excited that more people are interested in fitness overall. But interesting. So let's dive a little bit more into the survey. So in rank order, the top 5 resolutions: improve fitness was 48%. So that's a pretty staggering number. Improve finances, 38%. Improved mental health, 36%. Improved weight loss, 34%. And improved diet, 32%. And the article went on to state that, and I'm reading the direct quotes here, 49% plan on using a fitness app for assistance in sticking to their resolution. Fair. Generally, apps are the most popular tool used to maintain accountability. The most popular tools: diet program, 46%, gym membership, 43%, habit tracking app, 40%, diet/calorie counter app, 33%, meditation app, 33%. So this highlights a little bit of potential confusion, I think, on what improved fitness maybe actually means to some people, right? While weight loss and diet were 2 distinct choices, what was that, 34% and 32%, the most common fitness apps to help improve fitness goals were actually like diet and habit goals, right? Nothing on there. Like there was no tool, no app on there that was just like training program app. So I think that what most people probably mean when they say improved fitness, at least in this instance, is something along the lines of like combining like movement, lifestyle, nutrition, longevity, like all of those things, which to be fair is definitely the best option, right? So I don't really think that that was an option on the survey, which is probably why it wasn't like chosen. But I do believe that when people were talking about fitness and then they were citing those apps and like a gym membership, I think that just means like kind of a more holistic look at fitness in general, which again, super excited about. But this is what was super interesting to me. 20% of respondents said they keep themselves accountable when it comes to sticking to their goals. This is a massive drop compared to last year's survey, for which 77% of respondents said that they would keep themselves accountable. 77% last year said that they could do that. Only 20% said that this year. This is a huge drop in people's confidence in their abilities to actually hold themselves accountable. Yet, 80% of respondents feel confident in their ability to reach their goals, and only 6% lack this confidence. The difference between accountability and confidence levels are staggering, and not in a good way, right? Not being able to hold yourself accountable while simultaneously having uber high levels of confidence is setting people up to fail. This could not be a worse combination, if we're being honest. Like, in order to be successful, you need both, right? And in order to have both of those things, you need to get realistic. So this is where the review, resolution, goal setting type things start to come in. And if you guys are listening to this before the new year, you can also do this after the new year, right? It's not like January 1st happens and like all of a sudden you can't like do this. But there's something very satisfying about doing this before the new year. And I like to break things down into like pillars or buckets or really however you want to conceptualize it. Because otherwise it gets really overwhelming. Like you could be like, wow, this whole year fucking blew. Okay, not really helpful. Let's get a little more specific, right? So a few useful pillars, there can definitely be more, but I would say some of the big ones would be nutrition, training, mindfulness, mindset, personal development, spirituality, relationships, finances, and career, right? Those are the big kind of buckets, pillars. You might want to just look at 3 of those, right? You're like, hey, I got 15 minutes to do this, right? Shit's still crazy in my house. Kids are home, a lot going on, travel. Okay, I have 15 minutes. What can I do? Pick the top 3 pillars that you feel need the most review. And you might find that some are going to overlap, right? Like I said, mindfulness and mindset. Those things could be the same, one and the same for you. Likewise, you could break up relationships and be like, wow, I really want to look at relationships, but I have, romantic relationships, family relationships, friendships, co-working relationships, right? Like, so you might want to break up some of those pillars. These are just ideas and concepts for you guys to break down. But once you have your list, right? Once you decide what pillars, what buckets you want to look through, simply write down what worked, what didn't. What was great this year? Where did you need to improve, right? You don't need to make it super, super complex. I think that just honestly having an honest assessment of ourselves, we don't need 15 questions. We don't need all these different prompts. Hey, what worked? What didn't? And sometimes we forget some of the things that actually were really, really great about the year, right? Like I'm not talking like, oh my gosh, I went on this amazing trip, or like I got this, or I started a relationship, or like started our family, like big things like that. Like of course are in the forefront of our mind. But there's other big positive things that you probably did that you may have forgotten about. And some of those things that actually set you up for success for this current year, right? Like say you got a promotion. Okay, that's an amazing accomplishment. What were some of the steps like for this review? What were some of the steps that got you to that place, right? What were some of the habits and behaviors that you took in order to get you to the next level? And that doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily be able to replicate this and get another promotion this year, but you can say, okay, these tools made me more successful at my job. Can I replicate that this year? Same thing with the bad stuff, right? A lot of the bad things are going to stand out at us so obviously and so glaringly obviously, but I don't want it just to be something to where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just like sulking and I'm so sad. This whole year was terrible. But realistically, like there are habits and behaviors that we do that we're like probably not the best thing, right? And these can be really general, like really, really broad, or these can be really specific, right? You could be like, I really recognize once I sat down and thought about the past year, because a lot happens in a year, right? Like I was literally driving home today for meeting up with a client, and I was like, oh my God, like just thinking about January last year and like everything that's happened. Like there's been a lot that's happened in the past 2 weeks for me, let alone the past year, right? So sometimes we forget those things too, but really take an inventory and be like, okay, this year I was, had a shorter temper than I wanted. And that's pretty broad, pretty general, right? It's like a mood state, like high anger, moodiness, reactivity, whatever it might be, right? And then that's going to be something where you're like, I've seen this pattern. Let me break this down. What are some things that I could try to do that would minimize that or work through this? And other things might be really specific. Like, wow, when I looked at my year at a review, I just realized that I am wasting a lot of my time doing this. So it could be very, very general, very broad, whatever works again for you. And then start to look towards next year, right? Where are some areas that you want to expand? Where are areas that you want to bring back your energy and, set a boundary? What are some practices that you want to add or detract or just reduce? Because there's certain things that, hey, I scrolled too much in my phone. Most of us are going to be using social media in some capacity. It's not to say that you need to get rid of it, but hey, what are some ways that I can be more effective with it? And that's probably one that a lot of people are going to resonate with, myself included. But hey, this is where the resolutions can get like really out of hand, right? And especially right now, if you are listening to this at the end of the year, many people have off work, or they're traveling, or they're just like not in their normal environment. They're a little bit more relaxed. They're really excited, thinking about the possibilities of the new year. There's just something so refreshing about a new year. But this can create an unrealistic environment for our goal setting. If we are just thinking like, April 14th, I'm going to feel this way. Like you might not, right? April 14th, you might be in the midst of a total fire at work. Shit might be popping off. And again, this isn't to say that you have to be in like doomsday mode, and always thinking of like the worst case scenario. But this is where being realistic and finding a middle ground of goals that are too easy or too lofty. This is not to say that you shouldn't set really, really big goals, because yes, you should. That is how we actually are able to elevate ourselves to that higher level. But we have to be realistic along the way and break things down in a manageable way. But also, like I said, not too easy. If it's too easy, you're not going to want to do it. If you're like, oh yeah, well, I haven't really been doing anything, so let me do something for 10 minutes. And for some people that might be a lot, right? But if you know that you've just kind of been slacking, you adding in 10 minutes of something is not really going to be sufficient. Now, if you're adding in 10 minutes of a new practice or a new behavior, oh, hell yeah, that's going to be a lot harder, right? So if you're someone, for example, who has trained for the past 5+ years and the past month, you've just kind of been off your training. If you're like, yeah, I'll go to the gym once a week, it's not going to be challenging enough for you. If you haven't trained consistently for all of your life, going to the gym once a week is going to be a challenge. Say you want to start journaling, right? Which is probably one of my favorite habits and behaviors. And anybody who ever talks to me is probably fucking sick of me talking about journaling. But seriously, it is one of the lowest time and investment to highest reward and benefit behaviors that I can think of. It's just like walking. You're nailing so many positive benefits in one thing. Same thing with journaling. And there's not a big investment. There's not a money investment. There's not a lot of time investment. And there's also just like a pretty rapid payoff. Like if I had to tell people like meditating is amazing because I love it, but there's quite a significant investment in time and practice for you to actually start to see the benefits. You can journal for 10 minutes for a week straight and be like, wow, I'm actually like noticing differences here in my thought patterns, in how I'm processing things, how I'm consolidating information. So not that you have to journal, but if you're going to pick something, I would probably pick that. And here's the other problem with goal setting. A lot of people run into an issue where they're like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know who I want to be, what I want to change. They might be at a place where they're like, what I'm doing isn't working, whether that's in, personal, professional, mindset, health, fitness, whatever it might be. Like you maybe have gotten to a point where you're like, this isn't working, but I don't really know what to do next. And this is where you will take something to where you have like a little bit of an inkling of a feeling like this is kind of the direction I think I want to go. Start there. If you have any sort of direction from something that you've listened to, something that you've read, something that you've just kind of intuitively felt when you're actually really quiet with yourself, start in that direction. Take a few steps that way. And then you might be like, all right, like this, I'm actually kind of feeling this. I actually like this. Or you might take those steps and be like, this isn't it. This isn't for me. And that's also okay. A lot of this is like trial and error, and more people than you think are in this position of like, I want to make a change, but I don't know exactly where I want to go. And a lot of people, I feel like, try to fool everyone by being like, I have this perfect grand vision and I'm so focused and my intention. A lot of people are still figuring that out, and it's okay. And it's also okay if you feel like you figured it out and then you got to a place like, you thought you knew everything that you wanted to do 5 years ago, and now you're like, is this really it? And it might not mean that you need to have a whole overhaul. It might mean like, wow, if I change just a few things in my life and my intentions and my behaviors and what I'm putting my energy into and what I'm, protecting my energy from, you might find that you have a completely different life just with a few changes. But it all starts with taking small steps, reviewing, being realistic with everything. And if this sounds even like a lot, if you're like, okay, whoa, like this is still like too much, doesn't even need to be this intense. It could be something as small as like, all right, what was the best thing that happened this year? What was the most challenging thing that happened this year? What did I learn from both of those things, right? That in and of itself is so powerful, and you can do that in 5 minutes, right? You could set, hey, what are some intentions that I want to set for this year, right? Even if you don't want to do it like a review from this year, maybe like, hey, what are 3 things that I want to do in this coming year in terms of my intentionality? Again, they can be specific, they can be minor. Or even like a word or a phrase that you want to like embody this year, right? I know sometimes that is so powerful, and that's something that in those moments when you are having a challenging day or you're in the midst of like wanting to revert back to an old behavior, you can remind yourself of something quick like that, right? You're not going to like jot off, my 10 resolutions are the... What's the goal? What's the intention? What's the phrase that you want to use to ground yourself and remind yourself of who you want to be and where you want to go? So I really hope that these were practical, useful tips for you guys. I know that I'm actually going to be, the day I'm recording this, I'm actually doing this with a few friends. We're going to be kind of just talking on Zoom through this, and then I'll probably do some journaling before the end of the year just to kind of go through the year and review, because this kind of stuff is so, so powerful. And I know that the whole like setting resolutions can get really out of hand and can almost feel like defeated. It can feel defeating before we can feel defeated before we even start sometimes, right? But don't let it be overwhelming. Take small steps. From this article, I just gotta say, I'm really, really excited that most people are excited about improving their fitness come this year. So I just think that was a really cool thing, and I had to share that with you guys. So if you have any questions for me, drop them below in the comments if you're watching on YouTube, or you can send an email to info@teamlocofit.com. Definitely be happy to answer that for you guys. And for all other coaching, consulting, or mentorship inquiries, visit teamlocofit.com. You can check everything out there. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. And Happy New Year!